My name is Helen Anderson, and I grew up in what I thought was the ideal American family. We weren't rich at first, but we were happy, just me, Mom, and Dad living in our modest starter home. My father, James Anderson, was the hardest working man I've ever known. He built his transportation company from the ground up, starting with just 2 trucks and gradually expanding into a successful business. I remember how he'd sometimes come home covered in grease because he insisted on maintaining the trucks himself in the early days. Mom, Sarah is her name, though I can barely bring myself to call her that anymore, worked as a restaurant manager back then. She was actually good at her job, though she'd constantly complain about it. One day, James, she'd say during dinner, pushing food around her plate, "I want to be a proper housewife. All these late nights are killing me." Dad would just smile and pat her hand, promising her that soon she'd be able to quit. And he kept that promise. When I was 9, Dad's business really took off. He landed several major contracts, and suddenly we were moving into this beautiful 2-story house in one of the nicest neighborhoods in town. I got my own room, huge and bright, with windows looking out over our backyard. I went wild with the decoration. Pale purple walls, fairy lights everywhere, and this massive bookshelf Dad built himself. He spent an entire weekend on it, cursing under his breath when he thought I couldn't hear him, but beaming with pride when it was finally finished. Mom quit her job shortly after we moved, just like she'd always wanted. Instead of taking care of the house like she'd claimed she wanted to, she was barely ever home. It was always lunch with the girls or just a quick shopping trip or my salon appointment ran late. Dad didn't seem to mind. He was too busy with his company, though he always made time for me. Every Sunday was our day, we'd go for ice cream, and he'd listen to all my stories about school and friends as if they were the most important things in the world. The last time we had ice cream together was just before I turned 11. It was a bright spring day, and Dad was telling me about one of his drivers calling in sick. "Guess I'll have to do the run myself tomorrow," he said, finishing his cone. "Just like the old days." "Can I come with you?" I asked, excited at the prospect of a road trip with Dad. He chuckled and ruffled my hair. "Not this time, princess. It's just a quick overnight trip. I'll be back before you know it." I remember hugging him extra tight that evening before bed. "Love you, Dad," I said, not knowing it would be the last time I'd ever say those words to him. The next morning, he left before dawn. Mom was still asleep, so Maria, our nanny, made his coffee and packed him a lunch. I heard him start his truck and pull out of the driveway. That was the last time I ever saw my father alive. The phone call came at 3:47 a.m. I know because I was awake, unable to sleep due to that strange feeling in my stomach. I heard Mom scream from her bedroom, followed by the sound of something breaking, probably her bedside lamp. The next few hours are a blur in my memory. Police officers in our living room. Maria holding me tight while Mom paced back and forth, talking on the phone. Words like "massive collision" and "died instantly" floating around me like dark butterflies. Dad's truck had collided with a semi that had jackknifed it across the highway. They said he didn't suffer, as if that was supposed to make it better somehow. But nothing made it better. Nothing could bring back my father. The funeral is mostly a haze in my mind. I remember staring at the closed casket, not really believing Dad was inside. Mom put on quite a show, wailing and practically throwing herself across the casket at one point. Looking back now, I realize how theatrical it all was, but at 11, I thought that's just how adults handled grief. It was at the funeral that I met Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia for the first time. They looked so much like strangers, yet Uncle Robert had Dad's eyes, the same kind, crinkly corners when he tried to smile at me through his tears. "Helen," he said, kneeling down to my level. "I'm your father's brother. I'm so sorry we're meeting like this. Why haven't I met you before?" I remember asking, direct as only kids can be. A shadow crossed his face. "Your father and we had a disagreement many years ago. But none of that matters now. I had to come say goodbye to my little brother." After the funeral, Mom's grief evaporated like morning dew. Within weeks, she was meeting with Dad's lawyers, taking control of his company, and acting like she knew the first thing about running a transportation business. She started throwing around terms like restructuring and modernization, but it was obvious she was just making things up as she went along. I spent most of my time with Maria, who would shake her head sadly whenever Mom came home with shopping bags from expensive stores. "Your mother's spending money like water," Maria muttered one day while making my lunch. "Those poor drivers haven't been paid properly in weeks." She was right. Dad's employees started quitting one by one. These were men and women who'd worked for him for years, some since the beginning. I remembered their names, their faces, how they used to bring me little presents from their routes. Now they were leaving, unable to feed their families on promises and excuses. 6 months after Dad's death, Mom sold what was left of his company for a fraction of what it had been worth. She acted like she'd made some brilliant business decision, but everyone knew the truth: she'd run Dad's life's work into the ground. After the sale of Dad's company, Mom was rarely home, always out somewhere, and I spent most of my time with Maria. She'd started teaching me Spanish, saying it would come in handy someday. I spent a lot of time at the library after school. It was better than coming home to an empty house. Mom would breeze in late at night, sometimes smelling of wine, barely acknowledging my existence. "Oh, you're still up," she'd say, as if surprised to find me in my own home. Then she'd disappear into her room, and I wouldn't see her again until the next evening, if at all. Then came that Sunday night. I was doing homework in the kitchen when Mom burst through the door, giggling like a teenager. She wasn't alone. "Helen, sweetie," she called out, her voice thick with fake enthusiasm. "Come meet Richard." Richard was tall and wore an expensive suit that somehow still looked cheap. His smile didn't reach his eyes when he looked at me. "Helen," Mom said, clutching Richard's arm like a lifeline, "Richard and I got married last weekend. He's your new father. We're going to be a proper family again." "I already had a proper family," I said, my voice shaking. "I already have a father." Richard's fake smile disappeared. "Listen here, young lady," he said, his voice stern. "Your mother and I are married now. You need to accept that and show some respect." "You're not my father," I spat back. "You'll never be my father. See what I mean?" Richard turned to Mom. "Difficult child. Needs discipline." But Richard moving in was just the beginning. Within a week, his mother Gloria, his sister Janet, and his 12-year-old niece Madison had all moved in too. They took over the house like an invading army, rearranging furniture and changing the decor Mom and Dad had picked out together. Mom didn't seem to mind. She and Janet became instant best friends, spending hours shopping and gossiping. Gloria took over the kitchen, complaining about Maria's cooking until Mom fired her. I lost the only person who still cared about me in that house. Then came the final blow. I came home from school one day to find Madison in my room that Dad had built the bookshelf in, my room with the purple walls and fairy lights. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Aunt Sarah said I could have this room," Madison smirked. "It's bigger than the guest room, and I need space for all my things." "Get out," I screamed. "This is my room." "Not anymore," she taunted, throwing my books off the shelves. "Your mom says you're moving to the small room down the hall." I lost it. I lunged at Madison, and we both went down in a tangle of arms and legs. I pulled her hair while she scratched at my face, both of us screaming. Richard and Mom ran in, pulling us apart. "Helen," Mom shrieked. "How dare you? Go to your new room right now." "No. This is my room. Dad gave it to me." Richard grabbed my arm roughly. "Your father is dead," he snarled. "This is my house now, and you'll do as you're told." They locked me in the small guest room for 2 days, only letting me out for school and bathroom breaks. My books and things were piled in boxes in the corner. Dad's bookshelf was thrown out with the trash. Through the wall, I could hear Madison playing music in my old room, and Mom laughing with Janet downstairs like nothing was wrong. A few weeks after the room incident, I was heading to the bathroom late at night when I heard voices from downstairs. I crept to the top of the stairs, staying in the shadows. "The girl is becoming more difficult every day," Richard was saying. "She's disrupting our family harmony. Have you considered finding her another home?" My heart stopped. "Another home? You mean adoption?" Mom asked, and my blood ran cold at how thoughtful she sounded. "I suppose that could work. She's still young enough." "It would be better for everyone," Janet added. "Madison's afraid of her after that attack, and honestly, she doesn't fit in here anymore." I ran back to my room, buried my face in my pillow, and told myself they couldn't mean it. Mom wouldn't give me away. She couldn't. I pushed the conversation to the back of my mind, convincing myself it was just talk. 2 months later, my 13th birthday arrived. I wasn't expecting much, my birthdays hadn't been celebrated since Dad died. But to my surprise, Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia showed up at the door. "Happy birthday, Helen," Uncle Robert said, hugging me tight. His eyes narrowed when Richard walked past, ignoring us completely. Mom had thrown together a hasty dinner, probably embarrassed that Dad's brother might judge her. The tension around the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Mom cleared her throat. "Actually, Robert, Patricia, I'm glad you're here. There's something I need to discuss." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "Helen isn't happy here," Mom continued, not looking at me. "And frankly, we're not happy either. She doesn't fit in with our new family dynamic. I've decided to put her up for adoption." The words hit me like a physical blow. The conversation I'd overheard hadn't been just talk after all. "I thought, since you and Patricia don't have children of your own," Mom continued, her voice casual as if she were discussing the weather, "you might want to take her. If not, I'll start looking for other families." The room spun. I couldn't breathe. On my birthday. She was giving me away on my birthday. Uncle Robert's chair scraped back so violently it fell over. "We'll take her," he thundered, his face red with fury. "And you, Sarah, are the most despicable excuse for a mother I've ever seen. How dare you?" Richard started to stand, but one look from Uncle Robert made him sink back into his chair. "Patricia," Uncle Robert said, his voice gentler, "help Helen pack her things. We're leaving now." Aunt Patricia wrapped an arm around my shaking shoulders and led me upstairs. We packed quickly, throwing my clothes and few remaining possessions into bags. I was crying so hard I could barely see. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," Aunt Patricia kept whispering. "We've got you now." I walked out of that house without looking back at Mom. She didn't try to stop me, didn't try to say goodbye. The last thing I heard as Uncle Robert closed the car door was Madison asking if she could have my new room too. The transition wasn't easy at first. I'd wake up in my new room at Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia's house, momentarily confused about where I was. But then I'd smell Aunt Patricia's coffee and bacon wafting up from the kitchen, and remember that I was home, my real home. The adoption process moved quickly. Mom signed away her rights without hesitation, which hurt at the time but eventually felt like a blessing. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia became Mom and Dad on paper, making official what was already true in my heart. "Helen," Uncle Robert said one morning over breakfast, "we enrolled you in Riverside Prep. It's a better school than your old one, and we think you'll like it there." I did like it there. Without the constant stress of my old home life, I started doing better in classes. My teachers noticed, and so did my new parents. They came to everything, every school play, every academic awards ceremony, every parent-teacher conference. When I joined the debate club, they sat through every competition, beaming with pride even when I lost. They encouraged me to try new things. Piano lessons, summer science camps, volunteering at the local animal shelter, they supported it all. Not just with money, but with genuine interest and involvement. The pain of my mother's rejection faded gradually, replaced by the warm certainty of being truly loved. I stopped thinking about her, stopped wondering if she ever thought about me. My new life was too full, too happy for those old hurts to matter anymore. High school graduation came, and I had the loudest cheering section in the audience, not just Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia, but their whole extended family who had embraced me as their own. "We have something to tell you," Aunt Patricia said at my graduation dinner. "We've been saving for your college fund since the day you came to live with us." They'd put aside enough to send me to any school I chose. I picked State University's business school, planning to major in investment management. College was incredible. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make them proud. During my junior year internship at Goldman Sachs, Aunt Patricia mentioned casually that she'd run into my birth mother at the grocery store. "She has a son now," Aunt Patricia said carefully, watching my reaction. "They're still in your father's old house with Richard's family." I just nodded, surprised to feel nothing but mild curiosity. That life seemed like a distant dream now, happening to someone else. After graduation, I landed a job at Morgan Stanley. My starting salary made my eyes pop. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making right out of college. The day I got my first paycheck, I went straight to the jewelry store. Uncle Robert had been wearing the same worn-out watch for years, and Aunt Patricia had been eyeing a particular pearl necklace in a local shop window. When I gave them their gifts, Aunt Patricia started crying, and Uncle Robert's hand shook as he put on his new watch. "You shouldn't have spent your money on us," he protested weakly. "Who else would I spend it on?" I asked, hugging them both. "You're my parents. You're the ones who made all of this possible." 6 years flew by after college. I climbed the corporate ladder at Morgan Stanley, earning promotion after promotion until I was managing my own team. Every success felt sweeter because I could share it with Mom and Dad, as I now called Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia without hesitation. The apartment came first, a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a nice part of the city. Mom helped me decorate it, and Dad insisted on checking all the paperwork before I signed the mortgage. Then I met Michael. A year of dating, and he proposed during a weekend trip to the beach. I said yes, before he even finished asking the question. Mom cried when we told them, and Dad pulled Michael into a bear hug. "Welcome to the family, son," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. We threw ourselves into wedding planning. Mom and I spent weekends looking at venues and tasting cakes, while Dad and Michael bonded over budget spreadsheets and vendor contracts. Then the message arrived on Facebook. "Helen, sweetheart. I've heard about your upcoming wedding. I know it's been a long time, but I'm still your mother. I've changed, and I want to make things right. Please let me be part of your special day. I miss you so much." My hand shook as I read the message. I immediately called Mom. "I saw Sarah yesterday," Mom said quietly when I told her about the message. "At the grocery store. She didn't ask about you, not once. But when I mentioned how successful you've become, how you're getting married, well," her eyes lit up in a way I didn't like. Mom hesitated before continuing. "There's more. That niece of her husband's, Madison? She got pregnant, married some deadbeat, and moved back into the house with her husband. The whole family is constantly fighting." Sarah was complaining about money problems, rather loudly, in the middle of the store. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. So that's why she reached out. She needs money. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as memories flooded back, the room she gave away, the birthday she threw me away, the years of silence when she had every opportunity to reach out but didn't. Finally, I typed. "Sarah, let me be clear, you are not my mother. You lost that right when you gave me away on my 13th birthday. I have parents who love me unconditionally, something you never managed to do. I don't want you at my wedding. I don't want you in my life. Don't contact me again." I hit send, then immediately blocked her. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd finally put down a weight I didn't know I was carrying. The morning of my wedding dawned perfect and clear. Michael's parents had rented the Mason Creek estate for the ceremony, a beautiful historic property with sprawling gardens and a restored Victorian mansion. I was in the bridal suite with Mom, putting the finishing touches on my makeup, when there was a knock at the door. "Ms. Anderson?" One of the security guards looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a situation at the front gate. There are some people insisting they know you, a man, woman, and teenage boy." My stomach dropped. Somehow, I knew exactly who it was. "I'll handle this," I said, standing up carefully in my wedding dress. "Helen, you don't have to," Mom started, but I shook my head. "Yes, I do. Once and for all." I walked to the front gates, my wedding heels clicking against the cobblestone path. And there they were, Sarah, Richard, and a boy who must have been my half-brother, though he looked exactly like Madison. "Helen!" Sarah screamed when she saw me, grabbing the iron bars of the gate. "How dare you not invite your own mother to your wedding? Let us in immediately." I took a moment to really look at her. She'd aged poorly, her designer clothes were obviously last season's, her makeup too heavy, her hair desperately in need of a touch-up. Richard looked thinner, more haggard, the expensive suit replaced by something off the rack. "Richard should be the one walking you down the aisle," Sarah continued, her voice shrill. "He's your father." That made me laugh, a genuine, hearty laugh that echoed across the courtyard. My father? The man who locked me in a room for 2 days? The man who helped you throw away your own daughter? "We're family," Sarah's voice cracked. "You can't just pretend we don't exist. Look at how you're living, this fancy wedding, your big job, your expensive clothes. Meanwhile, we can barely make ends meet. We're drowning in debt, and you're here playing princess." Ah, there it was. The real reason for this dramatic appearance. "I'm not playing at anything," I said coldly. "I worked for everything I have. And let's be clear, you're not my family. You gave up that right years ago. My parents are inside that house. They're the ones who raised me, supported me, loved me unconditionally. You need our help." Sarah was practically foaming at the mouth now. "After everything we did for you." "Everything you did for me?" I cut her off. "You mean throwing me away like garbage? Taking away my room, my home, my childhood? That's what you did for me." I turned to the security guards. "These people are strangers who are trespassing. Please remove them from the property. They are not welcome here." "You can't do this," Sarah screamed as the guards moved forward. "I'm your mother." "No," I said firmly. "You're just the woman who gave birth to me. There's a difference." I turned my back on her continued screams and walked away, my head held high. When I returned to the bridal suite, Mom was waiting with a worried expression. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I took a deep breath and smiled. "You know what? I've never been better. That chapter of my life is finally, completely closed." There was a knock at the door, and Dad poked his head in. "Ready, princess?" I looked in the mirror one last time, adjusting my veil. The woman looking back at me wasn't that scared 13-year-old girl anymore. I was strong, successful, and loved, truly loved. "I'm ready," I said, taking Dad's arm. The wedding march began to play as we approached the garden ceremony. I could see Michael waiting at the altar, beaming at me with tears in his eyes. Our guest stood, turning to watch as Dad walked me down the aisle. This was how it should be, the man who taught me to drive, who helped me with my college applications, who showed me what a father's love really means, was the one giving me away. The ceremony was perfect. Michael and I exchanged our vows under a blue sky, surrounded by flowers and the people who truly loved us. When he kissed me for the first time as my husband, our guests erupted in cheers. The reception lasted well into the night. Dad gave a touching speech that had everyone crying, then made everyone laugh with embarrassing stories from my college years. Mom danced with Michael while I danced with Dad, and I couldn't stop smiling. That was 6 months ago. Michael and I just got back from our honeymoon in Greece, and life has settled into a wonderful new normal. Sometimes people ask me about my real parents, and I tell them truthfully that my real parents are the ones who chose me, who loved me, who shaped me into the person I am today. I don't know what happened to Sarah and her family after the wedding, and honestly, I don't care. I heard through the grapevine that they had to sell Dad's old house, but that's not my concern anymore. That part of my life is over. My story isn't about being abandoned or betrayed. It's about finding your real family, the people who love you not because they have to, but because they want to. It's about choosing happiness over bitterness, forgiveness over anger, and moving forward instead of looking back. I'm Helen Anderson Mitchell now, and I couldn't be happier with the way things turned out. Every morning, I wake up next to a man who loves me completely, and every Sunday, we have dinner with the parents who chose me and never let me go.
I just wanted to get along with Emma. The unexpected person who saved me, abandoned by my husband after 15 years of support, was the least likely savior. I am Emily. I'm 40, living with my husband, our daughters aged 14 and 11, and my in-laws, making 6 of us in total. My husband James is 5 years older than me and runs a farm with the in-laws. I work in the fields from early morning, help with checking and shipping vegetables until evening. But as a wife, I don't get paid. I also do almost all the housework for 6 people. James doesn't get much of a salary either, being family, and honestly, our life is not easy. We live in a big country house and the in-laws lecture me, saying, "You're lucky to live in such a large and fine house for free." But there's nothing good about it. It's just a lot of cleaning. Moreover, every weekend, my husband goes out drinking with his friends. Since there are no weekends off in farming, I have to do his work when he's hungover. He spends the little money he earns on alcohol. And if I complain, "Are you saying I don't earn enough?" he snaps back at me. I have often wondered why I even married him, looking down at his snoring face when he's drunk. The reason I didn't divorce him was that I had nowhere else to go. Having lost my parents early, my brother and his wife live in my childhood home. Without a family home to rely on and almost no savings, it seemed impossible for a 40-year-old woman with 2 daughters to survive. But I had my small pleasures, cooking with the vegetables we grew and the shared ingredients from other farmers and dairies. The ingredients might be irregularly shaped but tasted fine. When I cooked and gave the food as a thank you, everyone was delighted. Thanks to the fresh and tasty ingredients, my children grew up without being picky eaters. My husband and in-laws might criticize my cooking for being bland or poor, but they always finished their plates. The people around us were kind, and I could make and eat fresh, delicious food. My daughters were blessed with friends and enjoyed school. So, despite the worst husband and in-laws, I convinced myself I could live here, supporting my husband for 15 years. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. While working in the fields, a TV crew came to interview us. They were filming a program about visiting farmers' lunchtime, and they approached our house while we were working. My mother-in-law, Olivia, was thrilled, holding the microphone. "Please do! We can't offer much!" And then she whispered to me, "I'm going to put on some makeup, so you start preparing lunch quickly," and went back to the house. Reluctantly, I quickly wiped the sweat off my makeup-free face and prepared the dining table, while my husband James and my father-in-law Robert awkwardly handled the interview. For lunch, given the sudden visit, I couldn't prepare any elaborate TV-worthy dishes. The TV crew told us to keep it as usual, so I added a summer orange pound cake that I had planned to give away. Then Olivia appeared, lips bright red, dressed in her favorite dress. "Oh no, such a country-style table is embarrassing. Usually it's a bit more glamorous," she said. No, this is an ideal lunch with lots of vegetables. Having so many dishes and even a homemade cake for lunch is amazing," responded the TV people. Sure enough, people on TV are good at flattery. Their flattery, though maybe not sincere, made me happy. During the meal, everyone at the table enjoyed the food, saying it was delicious and finishing everything. I was surprised. I thought they'd just taste a bit and leave it at that. Throughout the meal, Olivia continued to give nonsensical explanations about the dishes, none of which she had made. But as they were leaving, the staff thanked me, not Olivia, saying, "It was incredibly delicious." And they thanked me. Half a month after the filming, our meal was broadcast on TV. Of course, our relatives and neighbors were thrilled, and my phone rang off the hook that day. The in-laws and my husband discussed staff's attitude and the edited scenes like they were industry insiders. Local ladies commented, "James looks so handsome. He might become a famous handsome farmer." This only made my husband more arrogant. He started going out more often to brag about his TV appearance, leaving me with all the work. I was truly, truly fed up. Then, 3 months after the TV appearance, my now quite smug husband dropped a bombshell. "I've fallen in love with someone else. Let's get divorced." What? Stunned by this unexpected confession, I couldn't think of anything to say. Ignoring my shock, he continued. "After the TV broadcast, a girl approached me. She listens to me so intently. I'm drawn to her. I think she's my destiny." "So you're having an affair with her?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed. "No, it's not like that. When I said I'd date her, she refused, saying she can't be with a married man. She's so noble. That's why I have to be pure for her." What is that? So cheating is wrong, but it's okay to divorce and date? It's incredibly selfish. While I was still reeling from his one-sided story, Olivia interjected, sounding exasperated. "Just get divorced already." What? I've always thought so. A dark, gloomy woman like you doesn't suit a handsome, kind man like James. When I heard he found a 24-year-old girl, I was sure. She's the true wife for our family. 24 years old? Could a girl 20 years younger than my husband really want to marry a low-income, middle-aged man with kids? Are you being fooled? What? My unexpected remark made Olivia widen her eyes in disbelief. Jealousy because you're being dumped is so ugly. I didn't mean it like that. You're a defective product who can't even bear a son. The new wife, you see, is attracted to James's kind heart and will come to our home. And of course, a younger, more obedient wife who can still bear children is better than an older, barren one. Right, Robert? Yeah, that's right. Robert, usually so unnoticeable, nodded with a pleased smile, seemingly happy about the prospect of a younger wife. Shocked by their words, my husband gleefully added, "Yeah, you can take the kids too. I want to start afresh with her." How could you? No need for them to go to high school, right? I'll pay child support till middle school. How generous of you, James. Olivia admired with an arrogant air. Sickened by this whole twisted scene, I ran out of what felt like a hellish home. The thought of my husband so easily abandoning our blood-related daughters for a younger wife made me feel nauseous and empty. What were my 15 years for? How are my daughters and I going to live from now on? Overwhelmed with despair, I crouched down. Then I heard, "Mom?" and saw two shadows approaching. It was my daughters. Both Ava and Isabella looked sternly at me. They must have been told about the divorce. "Ava, Isabella, I'm sorry. Because of Mom, it's Dad and them who are wrong," Isabella yelled with tears in her eyes. "Mom, let's leave, just like they said," Ava said, patting my back. "Dad is so creepy, obsessed with a younger woman. And Grandma is the worst, always saying terrible things to you. I don't want to stay in this horrible home. It's sad to leave our friends in school, but we can always message them. It'll be tough without much money, but Isabella and I will help with cooking, laundry, and other chores. Yeah, 3 girls together can make it work." Ava, Isabella. Tears welled up in my eyes from the encouragement of my daughters. I have to be strong for my gently raised daughters. How can I? their mother be downhearted. I must become stronger and make sure we find happiness together. I slapped my cheeks and held back my tears. I decided to divorce and immediately contacted my brother and his wife. Hearing my story, they were even angrier than me and told me to come back home. My sister-in-law, in tears, scolded me for not consulting her earlier. I had been hesitant to trouble her since she's not a blood relative, but I regretted causing her worry and felt grateful for her kindness. The next morning, while packing with the kids, I noticed a commotion in the yard. Peeking out the window, I saw a young woman arguing with James and Olivia. Could that be the future wife? As I watched, she noticed me and came towards me with a fierce look. Is it true you're divorcing James? Yes, yes. Her intense gaze made me hesitate. At my affirmation, she clutched her head and screamed. I don't know what he told you, but I don't like him at all. What? I don't like that delusional jerk, one bit. Really? What's going on? I was baffled by the sudden outburst of the woman I thought was the affair partner. Her anguished cries drew my stunned husband James and Olivia rushing over. Wait, Sophia, you watched TV and wanted to meet me, right? You said I was handsome. I never said you were handsome. I wanted to meet your wife, not some old man. I told you so many times. Me? I was taken aback by her unexpected revelation. Actually, I also help out on my family's farm. Seeing how you prepared all those vegetables so diversely, I really thought it was amazing. I genuinely respected Emily. That was all my doing! Olivia blurted out shamelessly. Sophia glared at her. A grandma in heavy makeup, sitting at the dinner table after farm work, couldn't possibly prepare such extravagant dishes. Heavy makeup? Grandma! I couldn't help but burst out laughing at Sophia's brutally honest words, earning a furious glare from Olivia. I was just having drinks with friends at a tavern when I saw James nearby, so I thought I'd try talking to him, hoping to meet Emily. But then he suddenly said, If you like me that much, I could date you. I thought he was joking, so I brushed it off, saying, I can't with a married man. Then he forcefully exchanged contacts, and yesterday he suddenly messaged me saying he'd divorced. So that's what happened. It turns out she was a victim just like me. My husband, who got carried away thinking he was a handsome farmer after appearing on TV, approached a young woman who misunderstood his intentions. How embarrassing. Utterly embarrassing. What? But I thought... My husband, unable to accept that he was misinterpreted, stood there gaping and shifting his eyes. Seeing his pitiful and ridiculous fate, any lingering feelings I had disappeared. I am sorry for the trouble my husband caused. I apologized, still technically his wife. Sophia quickly bowed her head in response. I'm sorry for my rashness, but I never expected this. It's okay. I wanted to separate anyway. This turned out to be a good opportunity. What? James looked at me in shock. I'm the one who should be saying what. Honestly, I think it's better for you to separate too. What? James looked at Sophia in disbelief. Okay, even if you divorce Emily, there's absolutely no chance of us getting married. Don't contact me again. Goodbye. Wait, Sophia! My husband, James, frantically tried to chase after the swiftly departing Sophia, but he tripped and fell spectacularly. Ava, our eldest, who had been watching the whole time, muttered, That's so embarrassing, and laughed. Ignoring whatever James and the in-laws wanted to say, my daughters and I left the in-laws' house. After staying with my brother and his wife for a while, we rented an apartment in the same town as them. I filed for divorce sooner than expected. The lawyer they recommended was excellent, securing not only my daughter's college fees, but also a substantial alimony, due to James's abusive behavior. I was really grateful that the attempted affair, which led to the divorce, didn't hinder us from getting the alimony. Naturally, James and the in-laws, who had lost Sophia, grumbled about the divorce, but the lawyer's firm stance, "We'll see you in court," made them relent and reluctantly sign the papers. Olivia's last words were, "James will find a much better wife than a barren one, or that ridiculous young girl." And then my husband said, "You'll regret this," as he left with those parting words. Thus, I escaped the hellish in-laws' house and started a new life with my daughters. 5 years later, oh, is this celery salad a new creation? It looks delicious. Yes, it's our top pick for this summer. I run a deli and sandwich shop in a small country town. After the divorce, I worked for a farmer whose owner admired my cooking skills and encouraged me to open the shop. My vegetable-based dishes are popular among the elderly and picky children, and the media attention has increased recently. Every day feels rewarding, especially when customers come all the way from the city just to eat my sandwiches. My daughters, now in college and high school, help out in the shop on weekends. One day, as I was busy with this fulfilling life, James and my former mother-in-law suddenly appeared at my shop. I was not surprised, anticipating their visit since my media exposure had increased. "Emily, you seem to be doing well." "James," my ex-husband said in worn clothes, smiling familiarly. "I saw you on TV. Proud to have a famous ex-daughter-in-law." Olivia, still in the same red lipstick and dress from 5 years ago, nodded in satisfaction. What nonsensical things are they talking about in the middle of a weekday? "You're not my husband anymore. If you're not buying anything, please leave," I said. "Don't rush. We've come to take you back," James retorted. "What? You've done well alone, but you look so tired on TV. I know you want me to rescue you," he assumed. "If you love cooking, you can open a cafe in our old house, but you must work in the fields. Oh, and your daughters are of marriageable age now, right? There's a 40-year-old neighbor looking for a wife." Both James and Olivia continued with their convenient delusions. Even after 5 years, these people haven't changed a bit. Before I could retort, an employee emerged from the back. "Wow, look who's here! The delusional jerk." "What? Who are you?" As my husband turned to glare at the source of the insult, his face froze in shock. "Sophia? Why are you here?" Yes, wearing the same apron as mine was Sophia, the woman James had once tried to have an affair with. "Why? Because Sophia's dad is my employer." "What?" James and Olivia were dumbfounded by this unexpected revelation. Sophia and I exchanged glances and laughed. After my divorce, I had moved back to my brother's town, and incredibly ran into Sophia at a local supermarket. We hit it off, and I ended up working part-time at her family's farm. My cooking with discarded vegetables gained popularity, leading to the opening of our sandwich shop. "Thanks to the goodness of abundance you let go, our business is thriving," I said. "Don't be silly, Emily. You're the lucky charm here," Sophia playfully responded. James and Olivia were clearly taken aback. Now was my chance to strike. "James, I heard you got scammed in a marriage fraud. Did you get your money back?" "What? How did you know that?" James's face turned pale. Apparently, he had been desperately seeking a young, unmarried, and beautiful wife, failing miserably. A supposed ideal match turned out to be a con artist, swindling a large sum from him. They had approached me, thinking I was unaware and could be a free laborer with money. They thought they could deceive me and take me back, but too bad for them. But I had a spy in the in-laws' house who kept me informed. "The eggs in this scramble come from Brown's farm, and these tomatoes in the salad are from Miller's." "Brown? Miller?" Former mother-in-law was flustered. "Yes, Brown, the poultry farmer, and Miller, the tomato grower, were neighbors of my former in-laws. All the local farmers agreed to supply my shop. They also keep me updated about you. I smiled with the brightest smile I never showed in the former in-laws' house. However, seeing my smile, they started trembling like old tractors. No way. Scammed out of a $200,000 in marriage fraud? Don't expect any money from me. I'm remarried. What? If you want to take me back, tell my current husband to prepare $100,000 for a divorce settlement. That's impossible. Realizing they couldn't exploit me anymore, they left, pale as ghosts, never to appear before me again. The in-laws couldn't find another wife to exploit, losing their farm and house, unable to pay off their debts. Now, living in a cramped apartment, working part-time at farms, with no savings and insufficient pension contributions. Poultry farmer Brown told me about their pitiful end. Serves them right, he said with a laugh. Brown is a kind person who has always cared for me. My ex-husband and his family were no good, but I believe I was blessed with the people around me. Though my marriage was tough, I was blessed with kind people around me. I once thought divorce meant the end for me and my kids, but it wasn't true. Living honestly and earnestly, there are people who notice and care. You can laugh at such terrible men, my friends say. Life isn't as bad as I thought. Welcome! I hung the Blue Norin at my little country sandwich shop, imagining the delightful smiles my sandwiches would bring. Ugh, so annoying. You and Ella are really a pain. I wish you'd just disappear. Henry hurled unbelievable insults at me and his own daughter. Just when I thought I couldn't trust this man anymore, an incident occurred. Ella? One day, when I returned home from work, Ella was sitting on the ground in the garden. Her hands, clutching her knees, were trembling from the cold. Even with a coat on, her exposed cheeks and the backs of her hands had turned red and black. Seeing my face, Ella smiled weakly, relieved. Mom, welcome back. Why are you in the garden? What happened? Where's Dad? Ella, still smiling, muttered resignedly, Mila and a family trip. Leaving just a sister and calling it a family trip, abandoning Ella, was a cruel act filled with malice. What does he think of Ella's existence? Of Ella's life? Henry probably underestimates me as a weak woman with little income. Indeed, that's true. But a mother becomes strong at times. Such a father is not needed. I am Aurora, a housewife in her 40s. I have 2 daughters, Ella in the 2nd grade of elementary school, Mila, 3 years old. When Mila started kindergarten, I began working part-time. Not having worked since Ella's birth, I was indeed tired, both physically and mentally. But I was happy to have more adult interactions, having had little contact with people before. Mom, I made dinner. Ella did? Wow, thank you. Returning home 30 minutes after Ella's school day, she was proud. To think she'd help out, considering how tired I am from part-time work, was touching. Until recently, I even prepared her morning clothes. I tried to hug her in my happiness, but she dodged me. Come on, I always say I don't like hugs. It's a bit sad, but my daughters are growing up fast. But the presence of my rebellious eldest son has been troubling me lately. Yuck, what's this meal? It's terrible. My eldest son, no, my husband, Henry, exaggeratedly complained. The flavor is too bland. Terrible. Who can eat this? It's trash. Today's meal was indeed a bit bland. I had informed Henry during meal preparation. Today's meal was made by Ella. That was how I phrased it, yet he chose to loudly fuss about it. Hey, Henry, stop it. Ugh, why are you angry? I just spoke the truth. I'm not in the wrong. Ella bit her lip and glared at Henry. Hey, you think it's okay to make that face at your parents? You're really insolent. Not cute. You can't even make a decent meal. You're finished as a woman. Such words shouldn't be said to a grade school daughter. My head heated up, and I took a deep breath. Then Mila appeared between us. "Dad, can't eat the meal? Mila will cast a spell," she said, showing the jam. Stretching, she spread jam on Henry's bread. "Let it be delicious. Let it be delicious. See, Dad, you shouldn't be picky. Eat a lot and grow big." The tense atmosphere softened instantly. Henry's face relaxed and he patted Mila's head. "Mila, thank you. Mila is cute, huh?" "Yeah, Mila is cute. Big sister is cute too." Mila is cuter." "Dad, love." Mila looked up at Henry with an unaffected smile. She was truly a magician. She easily silenced Henry, who had been so maliciously smiling at trying to belittle Ella. Our family isn't close, but it's normal enough. Henry doesn't have much interest in me or our daughters, even when Mila had trouble with friends. So? I can't do anything about it." He was indifferent. However, he drinks beer moderately and doesn't gamble. Of course, he doesn't have a violent side. He just leaves everything about the house and daughters to me. Not a bad person per se, just a man with no sense of fatherhood, I guess. Our relationship started to crumble about half a year ago. Henry came home drunk and overly cheerful one day. "Hi, Lord Daddy has returned." He messed with the daughters who were about to sleep. "Dad, don't stick to me, you smell." "Don't say that. Dad's a good man, right? You love me, right?" "Stop it." Thinking back, that day marked the beginning of Ella calling Henry smelly and avoiding him, and Henry started finding Ella annoying and not cute. Even on days when Henry hadn't been drinking, Ella would glare at him and call him smelly. I, suffering from chronic rhinitis, wouldn't understand, but girls of her age are sensitive, I suppose. Since Ella doesn't directly insult Henry, I consider it a part of her growing up and watch over her. But the real problem is Henry. "I've got souvenirs!" Returning from work, Henry loudly announced, showing us a box of cakes. Even Ella smiled at this moment, but upon opening the box, there were only 2 cakes. I secretly felt down, thinking there were only enough for the daughters, being a cake lover myself. "Here, Mila, you get the chocolate cake. You like it, right?" "Yeah, I love it." "And this cheesecake is for—" Henry smirked mischievously. "It's mine." Ella's smile vanished instantly. She turned her back on Henry and, dismissing it as silly, turned on the TV. I couldn't help but let out an irritated, "Huh?" at the blatant harassment. Wait a minute, what about Ella's share? This isn't right. Henry, as if he had anticipated being criticized from the start, sneered in a way that was unsettling. "Hey, I bought it with my money. I don't see why I should be scolded by you. Here, Mila, let's eat together." "Okay, let's eat. Big sister, Mom, let's share." The pure Mila brushed aside Henry's malice. Joyfully, she started preparing plates and forks for 4. "No, it's just for me and Mila." Henry was flustered, but faced with Mila's radiant smile, he bit his lip hard. Still, Ella seemed uncomfortable. So, I ran to the nearby grocery store and came back with lots of sweets. "Let's start our dessert party." Finally, a smile returned to Ella's face. In contrast, Henry clicked his tongue, ostentatiously eating a cheesecake. Ella's favorite, with exaggerated chewing and making a strange display. Henry must have been very displeased, for he complained even the next morning. "You spoil Ella too much. Buying her cake just because she pouts a little will only make her more arrogant. She's cheeky, so you need to discipline her properly." Discipline? Giving Mila cake but not Ella is your idea of discipline? That just makes Ella feel bad, and Mila can't enjoy her cake either. Think about both of their feelings. Henry probably can't keep up with Ella's growth, but what's the point of responding to a rebellious daughter with a rebellious attitude? Henry needs to realize he's a parent. You're a father. Henry slammed his hand on the table. "Yeah, I am a father. My child shouldn't be disrespecting me. It really pisses me off when she glares at me all the time." Raising his voice, he sounded like a delinquent teenager. Ugh, so annoying. Really, so annoying. You and Ella are both so annoying. I wish you'd just disappear. If these were the words of a son in the throes of a rebellion, maybe I could have handled it as a mother. But the reality is, Henry is Ella's father. These aren't words a father should say to his daughter. Disappear? What are you saying? Are you sane? That's it. Talking to you was a waste of time. I've got to work now, you know. Unlike you, I'm busy. If you want to keep talking, pay me. $10 for 3 minutes should do. You work part-time, you can afford $10, right? Henry couldn't hold back his laughter. Part-time pay is what, about $8 an hour? Wow, with that stance, you dared to complain to me. You're living thanks to me, so making me feel comfortable is your job. First, deal with that selfish Ella. Make her unable to be selfish. Got it? I felt hot all over. My brain seemed to boil. Dirty words I wanted to hurl at Henry kept coming to mind, but I couldn't speak them. Probably, my face was red with rage, shaking. Wow, what a weird face. Why did I even marry someone as annoying and ugly as you? Right, because of Ella. So my life got messed up because of Ella? Everything's Ella's fault, huh? Henry left for work with a half smile. I suppressed the urge to scream and hit my chest hard. Luckily, Ella and Mila were still asleep. I despised Henry, of course, but I was also furious with myself. Ella? Mila? I want to protect you. I crouched down and cried silently. How powerless I am. I want to leave Henry right away, but I can't. Just as Henry says, my part-time job pays less than $10 an hour. I alone can't provide my daughters with a life any different from now. Even such a father is necessary. Feeling powerless, ashamed, and unable to stop my tears. Mom, good morning. Mom, are you okay? I hear Ella and Mila's voices behind me. I can't show my daughters a mother crying. Crouching down, I couldn't even respond. After a while, I catch my breath and wipe away the tears. Then, I'm back to being the cheerful mother I always am. Sorry. Good morning, you two. Mom will make breakfast in a bit, so wait for me, okay? I smile brightly at my daughters and head towards the kitchen, but Ella grabs my hand tightly. Mila grasps the other hand. The warmth of their hands looking up at me seeps through. I want to protect them. Even more strongly, I resolve. Attempts to talk to Henry afterward were futile. Henry refuses to listen. The problem is Ella's annoying attitude. He insists. Indeed, Ella doesn't say it, but she obviously avoids Henry, so I advised her, but he smells. It's not good to express it in her attitude, even at her age. It hurts a father too. But Ella hesitantly mumbled, but as if it was difficult to say. The smell of Dad, I really hate it. Don't you notice, Mom? Ella's eyes filled with tears. Finally, she shared what she had been holding back in her heart. Sweet smell from Dad? Confused, I listened as Ella nodded. The relationship between Henry and Ella remained strained. Henry doted on Mila alone, treating Ella roughly. Mila is really cute. If only I have Mila, I'm happy. I was about to speak out in anger when Ella stopped me. Any words would only lead to a pointless argument. Mila only? That's stupid. Ella whispered so only I could hear, shrugging in exasperation. The incident happened this weekend. Unusually, I had part-time work on a Saturday, and I left for a half day. Part-time on a Saturday? Well, I'll take care of Mila, so you can work in peace. You'll earn at least tonight's dinner money, right? Irritated by Henry's sarcastic tone, but trusting him with Mila, his favorite, I let Ella go to a friend's house in the morning. After work dragged on, I hurried home around 2 p.m., later than the planned 1 p.m. Henry, did you feed Ella and the rest lunch? No, they might be waiting for me. As I went to unlock the entrance, I felt a slight presence from the garden. The garden, small, with just a pot of mini tomatoes Ella brought from school, now barren in winter, isn't a place the girls usually play. A bad feeling led me to peek into the garden. Ella? There, sitting on the soil of the garden, was Ella. Rushing over, I found her hugging her knees, her hands trembling from the cold. Ella? Why? Even with the coat on, her exposed cheeks and hands were red and blackened. I wrapped her ice-cold hands in mine and rubbed them to warm her up. Seeing my face, Ella smiled weakly, relieved. Mom, you're back. Sorry to keep you waiting, but why are you in the garden? What happened? Where's Dad? Ella, keeping a smile on her lips, murmured as if giving up. Mila and a family trip. Remembering how happy Henry was this morning about spending time with Mila, I had dropped Ella off at a friend's house and then headed straight to work. I had also told Henry that Ella would be back by noon. Around noon, when Ella came home, it seemed Henry and Mila were just leaving. A trip? A family trip? Announcing it as a family trip seemed like a malicious act filled with ill intent. And to leave Ella out in the cold without even unlocking the house? What do they think Ella's existence, Ella's life, is worth? Sorry. It must have been cold. It's okay now. I hugged Ella tightly. On the damp, cold soil, Ella finally let her tears fall. I don't want to see Ella's sad smile or her tears anymore. Then we'll move out, just the two of us. Huh? Ella was surprised. The move I had been planning for some time, deciding now was the time to act. But what about Mila? Mila will be okay. Encouraging Ella, who was a bit anxious, we immediately started preparing to move. While packing, I called Henry. It took several tries, but finally, Henry answered after I redialed a few times. What? You're calling too much. It's scary. He should know best why I was calling him repeatedly. Where did you go, leaving Ella behind? Out with Mila. She's my child. What's wrong with taking her out? It's okay to go out, but leaving Ella behind is terrible. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't help raising my voice. I feared Henry would get angry if I spoke like that, but surprisingly, he was nonchalant. Ella's already in elementary school. It's fine. You're too overprotective. He seemed to be enjoying a family outing. From the other side of the phone, I could probably hear the joyful music of an amusement park. Give me back Mila. No way. Don't talk about her like she's your property. Mila loves me more than you. Henry laughed out loud. I wanted to cover my ears to block his unpleasant laughter, but I could faintly hear Mila's voice. Hey, is that Mom on the phone? Then the call was cut off. No matter how many times I redialed, I couldn't get through to Henry again. Having no other choice, I left a note on the table stating we were leaving and departed with Ella. Henry called late at night. Where are you? Why aren't you here? I left a note. Ella and I can't keep up with you anymore. That's why we left the house. Huh? What about meals? Even now, all he's worried about is meals. I was so dismayed I was speechless. Don't mess around. Your job is to make meals and clean. Hurry back. I'm not coming back. What? Then what about today's meal? It's unfair to just leave like this. If I didn't respond, Papa, I'm hungry. I could hear Mila whining. Papa, hey Papa, dinner. Mila, since Mom left on her own, there's no meal. This is so annoying. Maybe I'll order takeout. But then we spent quite a bit on the trip. What a hassle. While I was concerned about Mila, I hung up the phone. Henry should enjoy his precious time with the lovely Mila as much as he wants. And then, 3 days passed. Henry had been calling frequently, but I ignored all his calls. Today too, from early morning, the phone hasn't stopped ringing. The calls would end and then start again. Thinking it was about time, I answered the phone. Hey, I've called you so many times. What are you doing? Come back home now. That's why I'm not coming back. Shut up. Come back. Just somehow, please. I could feel the weariness in Henry's voice. Perhaps he was tired from being with Mila, something he had never involved himself with before. Pleaded by Henry, I returned home. As I opened the door, Mila ran towards me like a dog. She leaped into my arms with force. Mama, welcome back! Mila, I'm home. Were you lonely? Not at all. I'm fine. Mila answered brightly with a smile. From behind her, a worn-out Henry walked in. Where have you been, and what have you been doing all this time? Henry, with bags under his eyes, looked resentful. I left a note about leaving. More importantly, where did you take Mila without permission? To the amusement park. Before Henry could finish, Mila told me, I went to the amusement park with Papa. Wow, Mila, that's great. Did you have fun with Papa? You know, Amelia's mom was also there. Really? Amelia's mom? I turned around slowly while Henry looked away. Hey, Henry, who's Amelia's mom? Henry, avoiding my gaze, seemed to be searching for an excuse. Well, Amelia is... As Henry fumbled, Mila, with a beaming smile, revealed the truth. Amelia's mom is Mila's new mom. I have 2 moms now. Isn't that great? I stroked Mila's head, who seemed happy. No, that's not it. Mom is only Aurora. Right, Aurora? Henry was panicking. Making a child call your affair partner mom is the worst. I spoke in a surprisingly low voice. We have no choice but to divorce. It's because of your affair. No, wait. Let's not rush into a divorce. Really, it's not what it seems. And it's over with Amelia. Henry, usually so confident, was desperately trying to cling to me. I knew you were cheating. Ella told me. She said she could smell sweetness coming from you. She was avoiding you not because of the smell, but because she hated having a father who cheats. Hearing that Ella knew, even Henry grimaced, but he didn't stop making excuses. Amelia and I were just hanging out. It wasn't anything serious. And it's really over with her. Tell Ella it was a misunderstanding. So no divorce. Just 3 days ago, he had taken Mila on a fake family trip. It's hard to believe such words. But, well, it was inevitable, I nodded. So you got dumped by your affair partner? Henry nodded silently. You're a father with children. A man who easily breaks his family won't be happy, even if he remarries. Keep silent if you're going to spout nonsense like that. I'm not at fault. It's Mila's fault that Amelia dumped me. Henry pointed at Mila. What do you mean, Mila's fault? You enjoyed the amusement park, right? The amusement park, yes. But after you left, I had to bring Amelia home. That's the worst. It's your fault for leaving on your own. Even Amelia, after taking care of Mila for half a day, just left. That coward. Henry, though agitated, soon slumped his shoulders and drooped his back. By the way, Mila, what's going on with her? What do you mean? She's a kind girl. Even now, trying to stop our fight, she brought us snacks, filling up my hands and Henry's pockets. We couldn't hold any more, and yet, Mila ran back to get more snacks. At the amusement park, she was so excited she got lost many times, which was annoying. But worse than that, her tantrums since coming back from the park have been too much. I ordered takeout for dinner and she cried because she didn't want either hot dogs or hamburgers. Mila doesn't even like hot dogs or hamburgers to begin with. So I ordered pizza too, but she was still loudly fussing. Of course, Mila likes plain bread. She's particular about only having jam on it. Huh? You allow that kind of pickiness? Mila is out of control. She hardly sleeps at night, and when she does, she starts crying out. When am I supposed to sleep? So that's why the bags under Henry's eyes were so dark. Normally, Henry sleeps in a separate room from my daughters and me, but I guess he never bothered about the noise, considering it none of his concern. She's crazy, you know. The moment we go outside, she suddenly starts running. What's with that? I thought she was excited at the amusement park, but she just runs off into the street without any sense. I tried to walk her to kindergarten, but it was impossible. Henry was handed more snacks by Mila. Despite Mila looking up at him with a smile, Henry didn't return the smile and remained serious. Sitting down in the hallway, Henry held his head in his hands. I'm tired. It's your fault. You failed at parenting. You're a failure as a mother, aren't you? I squatted down in front of Henry, looking straight into his face. I'm a failure as a mother? What about you, who knew nothing about Mila, even though she's already 3 years old? What have you been looking at for these 3 years? Henry's face turned red with anger. Shut up. I'm working, so it's your responsibility to take care of the kids. Don't burden me anymore. Just come back home. I sighed while still looking directly at Henry. Did we fail at parenting? Yeah, a massive failure. Really? Is that so? I stood up, looking down at Henry with cold eyes. So, the father who shows no interest in his children and cheats is the one who turned out to be a failure? Henry, that's what you've become. What? Being mean to a defiant child? Abandoning a child who doesn't do as you wish? Is that being a father? We don't need a failed father like that. Henry couldn't stand up under the pressure. Somewhere, I had thought parenting was my job, and I had been considerate of Henry, who was providing for us. But I can't want to continue as a family with Henry, whose foolishness has been so clearly exposed. Come back? No way. I just came to pick up Mila. Henry, you're not needed. I'm not your mom. I have no obligation to indulge your whims. Ugh, are you mad? Henry, usually so pompous, instantly loses his drive when I push back even a little. Sorry, I was wrong to cheat, but I'll properly break up with Amelia, okay? She's the worst, you know. She said she wanted to take care of cute little Mila if we got married, but she gave up after half a day. Useless, right? She's over 30 and still lives with her parents. Can't even make a meal. Mila's mom is only you, after all. Who was it that looked down on me as a failure as a mother just a while ago? Trying to smooth things over with whatever he says, I felt deeply that he's utterly untrustworthy. Right, I'm Mila and Ella's mother, so I'll never abandon them and will protect them. Then, as a father, I cut off Henry's voice. It's too late. We don't need Henry. Why don't you go back to your mom and get re-raised? Henry, whether out of anger or despair, trembled slightly with his hands on the floor. He breathed heavily and looked down. Papa, I'll give you some snacks. Worried, Mila stacked snacks in front of Henry. Henry slightly lifted his head and took Mila's hand. Mila, you like Papa, right? Yeah, I like you. So you'd be sad if Papa was gone, right? Not really. It's okay if you're not here. Henry's smile twisted. But you said you liked me, right? Yeah, I like you. This much. Mila showed how much by barely touching her fingertips together. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. That's basically 0. Then Mila spread her arms wide. And I love Mama this much. She ran down the hallway. From here to here. That's how much I love Mama, she shouted. You know, like bigger than our house. That's how much I love Mama. Like the universe. That's how much I love Mama. Mila's love was unstoppable. As Mila's smile shone brighter, Henry's face turned paler. So that's why we don't need Henry. Goodbye. Henry weakly raised his right hand as if to say, ugh, but seemed to lack the energy to call out. I picked up Mila and left the house we had shared with Henry. Left alone, Henry seemingly had no choice but to call back his affair partner, Amelia. Even if she was bad at household chores, she was probably better than Henry, who couldn't do anything. With the troublesome child gone, there was nothing to disrupt the two of them, so it wouldn't be surprising if their love rekindled. I learned about these two from the mom friends living nearby. They were surprised to see a woman they didn't know entering and exiting my house. I thanked them for their concern and made sure to explain the situation clearly to avoid any misunderstandings. The rumor quickly spread throughout the neighborhood and somehow even reached Henry's company. The world feels small indeed. About a month after I left the house, when I contacted Henry by phone, "Ugh, Aurora?" He responded with a voice overflowing with joy. "Long time! Have you been well? Missed me since I wasn't around? I've been waiting for a call from you." Even though you're living with your affair partner? How do you know? No, but I kicked her out. That was a lie. You were dumped by your affair partner, weren't you? Huh? It seems the rumor of being cheated on and abandoned by his wife made it difficult for Henry to stay at his company, and he ended up resigning. He probably thought he would find a new job quickly since he was capable at work. Don't act so high and mighty when you're unemployed, right? So how do you know? Don't act so high and mighty when you're unemployed. That was the last thing the affair partner hurled at Henry. They had a big fight and were even yelling in front of the house, as I heard from the aforementioned mom friends. Probably you just ran away from an uncomfortable workplace, but couldn't find another job, right? Hit the nail on the head. Henry fell silent. And yet at home, you strutted around, not even bothering to carry your used dishes to the kitchen. Even your affair partner who loved you didn't have the hobby of catering to such an arrogant unemployment. Ugh. I gave you a chance to grow by telling you that you were a failure, but you couldn't improve. Henry's heart must have reached its limit, being hurt by his pride by me, the children, and his affair partner. The reason I contacted you today is not because I was worried about you, nor because I want to reconcile with you. I stated in an emotionless voice. Sign the divorce papers I sent before, quickly. There was no reason to keep in touch with Henry except to sever ties. Henry, not wanting to be attacked any further, agreed to the divorce amicably. We got a lawyer involved and received a proper settlement for alimony and division of property. This should ensure that my daughters and I won't have trouble living for the foreseeable future. Sorry for being late. When I returned home from work, a pleasant aroma filled the air. Oh, beef stew today, huh? Grandma and I made it. Great, I can't wait to eat. I moved back to my parents' house with my daughters. My parents aren't wealthy, and Ella had to change schools because the district changed. Friends can be made anywhere, but you only have one mama. I hesitated to rely on my parents, but Ella encouraged me. Now, with my parents' help, I can work full-time. Hey, Mama! Mila made the carrots in the beef stew into star shapes. Isn't Mila amazing? My parents indulged Mila's quirks and unbelievable actions with a smile. They seem to have more patience because she's a beloved grandchild. I remember them being stricter with me when I was a child, though. Ella and Mila's beef stew is so yummy. There's a secret ingredient. What could it be? Love? Ella shows a wry smile. The correct answer is chocolate. Mila couldn't hold back and blurted out the answer. Such an ordinary life feels overwhelmingly happy.
The cloud had lifted, revealing the ugly truth beneath. As Derek left, he turned to me, a sad smile on his face. We'll get through this, Laura, for our kids. I nodded, watching him walk away, feeling the solidarity between us. We were united in our betrayal, but also in our determination to rise from the ashes of our broken marriages. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but we were ready to face them. Together, we would seek our revenge, not through petty acts, but by reclaiming our lives and showing Nathan and Melissa that we were stronger than their deceit. The day of the confrontation had arrived. Derek and I had arranged to meet Nathan and Melissa at Derek's house, a neutral ground laden with memories of better days. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart beat out of your chest. Nathan and Melissa sat across from us, a gulf of betrayal between. Their faces were masks of apprehension, a stark contrast to Derek's steely resolve and my simmering anger. Derek didn't waste a moment. We've seen the evidence. Now we want to hear it from you. What's been going on? His voice was calm, but the underlying fury was palpable. Melissa glanced at Nathan, a silent plea for support. Nathan cleared his throat, his usual confidence nowhere in sight. We didn't mean for this to happen, he began, his voice a mere shadow of its former self. It just did. Just did? I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. You make it sound like an accident. It was a mistake, Melissa interjected, her voice trembling. We never meant to hurt anyone. A mistake? Derek's laughter was bitter, filled with scorn. You call destroying our families a mistake? Nathan looked at me, desperation in his eyes. Laura? Don't. I cut him off, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Don't you dare try to justify your actions to me. The room fell silent, the tension a tangible entity that wrapped around us, suffocating. Derek leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Nathan and Melissa. We're done here. We've heard enough. But what about us? What about our families? Melissa's plea was met with a cold, hard truth from Derek. There is no us anymore. You two made sure of that. His words were final, a door slamming shut on any hope of reconciliation. As Nathan and Melissa left, the reality of our situation sank in. The betrayal was out in the open, but it did little to ease the pain. If anything, it amplified it, each word from Nathan and Melissa a knife twisting deeper. Derek and I sat in silence, the aftermath of the confrontation settling around us like dust after a storm. What now? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Now we move forward, Derek replied, his voice firm. We start the divorce proceedings, and we make sure they understand the gravity of what they've done. I nodded, the path ahead clear but daunting. This was just the beginning. Nathan and Melissa had to face the consequences of their actions, not just in our broken hearts, but in their shattered realities. The following weeks were a blur of legal meetings and paperwork, a constant reminder of the betrayal. But amidst the chaos, a resolve solidified within me. Nathan and Melissa would not get away with tearing our families apart without facing the repercussions. Derek and I were in constant communication, our bond strengthened by our shared resolve for justice. They won't know what hit them, Derek said during one of our strategy meetings. His determination was infectious, a beacon of strength in the overwhelming darkness. The day we filed for divorce was somber, yet there was an undercurrent of empowerment. We were taking control, no longer victims of Nathan and Melissa's selfish desires. As I signed the papers, my hands steady, I couldn't help but think about the journey ahead. It would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready to reclaim my life, to show Nathan that he hadn't broken me. I was stronger than his betrayal, and I would emerge from this ordeal not just intact, but reborn. The battle lines were drawn, and this was just the beginning. Nathan and Melissa would soon learn that their actions had consequences, and Derek and I were just getting started. The legal battle was in full swing. Derek and I sat across from our respective lawyers in a conference room that felt too cold, too impersonal for the storm of emotions brewing inside me. We were about to discuss our strategy for the upcoming court sessions, a plan that would ensure Nathan and Melissa felt the full weight of their betrayal. Our primary focus is on the financial repercussions and the custody arrangements, Derek's lawyer began, his voice all business. We have a strong case, given the evidence of infidelity and the impact on your families. I nodded, my mind racing. The thought of Nathan and Melissa squirming in their seats, faced with the cold, hard facts of their actions, gave me a grim sense of satisfaction. Derek leaned in, his voice low but fierce. We're not just going for a simple divorce settlement. We want to make sure they understand the pain they've caused, financially and emotionally. The lawyers outlined the strategy, including demands for alimony, child support, and even punitive damages for emotional distress. With each point they made, I felt a step closer to justice, a step closer to making Nathan and Melissa pay for the havoc they'd wreaked. As we wrapped up the meeting, my lawyer handed me a stack of documents. These are the filings for the court. Once these are processed, it's only a matter of time. I took the documents, the weight of them in my hands, symbolizing the gravity of the situation. Thank you, I said, my voice steady. I want them to regret ever crossing us. The day of the first court session arrived. Nathan and Melissa were already seated when Derek and I walked in, their faces a mix of defiance and nervousness. As we took our seats, I caught Nathan's eye, his gaze quickly shifting away, unable to hold mine. The proceedings were a blur, the lawyers presenting the evidence, arguing our cases with clinical precision. Nathan and Melissa's lawyer tried to downplay the affair, painting it as a momentary lapse in judgment, but the evidence spoke louder than his words. During a recess, I stepped outside for air, the weight of the courtroom suffocating. Nathan followed, a desperate look on his face. Laura, can't we talk about this? There has to be another way, he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him, my resolve as strong as ever. Talk? After everything you've done? You're delusional, Nathan. He reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. You'll pay for what you've done. both financially and by losing us. You've already lost everything that mattered. Returning to the courtroom, I felt empowered, my path clear. Nathan and Melissa had chosen their fate the moment they betrayed our trust, and now they were facing the consequences. As the judge announced a recess until the next session, Derek and I shared a look of determination. This was far from over, but we were on the right track. Nathan and Melissa's lawyer seemed rattled, a sign that our strategy was working. Outside the courtroom, Derek and I discussed our next steps. They think they can get away with a slap on the wrist. We'll show them how wrong they are, Derek said, anger lacing his voice. I nodded, the fire of revenge burning brighter within me. They'll regret the day they decided to betray us. This is just the beginning. As we left the courthouse, the cold air felt invigorating, a stark contrast to the heated emotions inside. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for the fight. Nathan and Melissa would learn the hard way that actions have consequences, and Derek and I were the harbingers of their reckoning. The days leading up to the final court session were filled with a tense anticipation. Derek and I had become fixtures in each other's lives, our shared quest for justice, a bond that was unbreakable. We spent hours poring over documents and strategizing with our lawyers, determined to leave no stone unturned. On the eve of the final session, Derek called me. "Tomorrow's it, Laura. Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be," I replied, my voice tinged with a mix of nerves and determination. "We've got this. They won't know what hit them," he said, his confidence bolstering my spirits. The courtroom was packed the next day, a silent audience to the final act of our drama. Nathan and Melissa sat together, a united front that belied the cracks in their facade. As the session began, our lawyer presented our closing arguments with precision and unwavering conviction. He laid out the financial demands, the request for sole custody, and the punitive damages for the emotional toll their actions had taken on us. Nathan's lawyer attempted a rebuttal, arguing for leniency and a more equitable division of assets. My clients regret their actions, but they shouldn't be financially ruined because of a personal mistake. Derek leaned over to me, whispering, "A personal mistake? They call destroying families a mistake?" I couldn't help but scoff quietly, the absurdity of their defense clear as day. Then it was Melissa's turn to speak. She stood, her voice shaky. "I know we've caused pain, and I'm truly sorry for that. But please, think of the financial consequences. We have a child to think about." Her plea hung in the air, but my heart had hardened against their excuses. They thought of consequences only when faced with them, not when they embarked on their affair. Finally, Nathan stood. "I've made mistakes, but I'm asking for a chance to make things right. Don't let this mistake define our entire lives." The judge listened intently, his expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, he announced he would deliver his decision. The wait was agonizing, each tick of the clock a reminder of what was at stake. When the judge returned, the room fell silent. He began to speak, his voice firm. "After careful consideration, the court has decided to grant the plaintiff's requests for alimony, child support, and partial punitive damages. The betrayal and its impact on the families cannot be overlooked." A gasp went through the room, Nathan and Melissa's faces turning pale. The judge continued, outlining the financial ramifications and the custody arrangements that favored Derek and me. As the judge concluded, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Justice had been served, not just in words but in actions that would ensure Nathan and Melissa felt the consequences of their betrayal. Outside the courthouse, Derek and I shared a moment of quiet victory. "We did it," he said, a smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We did," I replied, the reality of our victory sinking in. They finally got what they deserved. As we parted ways, I felt a chapter of my life closing. The pain of betrayal would always be a part of me, but so would the strength I found in standing up for myself. Nathan and Melissa's downfall was a testament to karma's unyielding grip. They had chosen their path, and now they were forced to walk it, burdened by the financial and emotional weight of their choices. The drive home was reflective, a mix of sadness for what was lost and hope for what lay ahead. The battle was over, but the war for my own peace and happiness was just beginning. I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the knowledge that justice, in the end, always finds a way. In the aftermath of the court's decision, the world seemed to shift on its axis. The victory was bittersweet, the taste of justice mingled with the remnants of a life unraveled. Yet, amidst the rubble of broken relationships and shattered trust, a new resolve took root within me. The first signs of Nathan and Melissa's unraveling came swiftly. Nathan, burdened by the financial obligations imposed by the court, reached out in a desperate attempt to renegotiate the terms. I can't afford this, Laura. It's going to ruin me, he pleaded over the phone, his voice a mix of desperation and disbelief. The court has made its decision, Nathan. You should have thought about the consequences before, I replied, my voice steady, devoid of the warmth it once held for him. But what about Ava? What about our family? His attempt to tug at my heartstrings fell flat, the mention of our daughter igniting a protective fierceness within me. Our family was broken the moment you chose Melissa over us. You're facing the consequences of your actions now, I said, hanging up before he could respond. The finality in my voice marked the end of our conversation, and in many ways, the end of our connection. Melissa, too, faced her comeuppance. With Nathan's finances in disarray, she found herself grappling with the reality of raising their child without the lavish lifestyle she was accustomed to. Her complaints filled the air, reaching me through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances who still lingered on the fringes of my life. It's not fair. This isn't the life I signed up for, she lamented to anyone who would listen, her voice tinged with bitterness and regret. The schadenfreude I felt was tempered by a hint of pity, not for Melissa, but for the innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult folly. Derek and I, through our shared ordeal, had grown closer, our conversations a blend of commiseration and burgeoning friendship. One evening, over coffee, he shared a piece of news that felt like the final nail in the coffin of Nathan and Melissa's deceit. They're struggling to make ends meet. Melissa's been looking for work, and Nathan's second job barely covers the alimony and child support, Derek said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice that mirrored my own. It's the bed they made. Now they have to lie in it, I responded, the sentiment echoing the harsh reality of their situation. Our dialogue was interrupted by Ava's laughter, a sound that brought home the reason for all our struggles. Derek's daughter, too, found joy in the simple moments we shared, her presence a balm to the wounds of the past. As the days turned into weeks, the tangible outcomes of our legal victory became evident. Nathan and Melissa's facade of unity crumbled under the weight of financial strain and public scrutiny. Their attempts to maintain a semblance of normalcy were met with the cold, hard truth of their actions and the repercussions that followed. In the midst of their downfall, Derek and I found a semblance of peace. Our meetings, once dominated by strategies for legal battles, now gave way to conversations about healing and moving forward. We've come a long way, haven't we? Derek mused one afternoon as we watched our children play in the park, their laughter a testament to their resilience. We have, I agreed, allowing myself a moment to reflect on the journey. And we'll keep moving forward, for them and for ourselves. The chapter of betrayal and revenge had closed, leaving behind lessons learned and strength gained. Nathan and Melissa's descent was a testament to the power of karma, a reminder that actions always have consequences. For Derek and I, the path ahead was clearer, paved with the promise of new beginnings and the determination to build a future defined not by the past, but by the possibilities that lay ahead.